In step 2, we use the lazy loading approach for loading our slides. And if you recall, in that approach, we use data lazy as our attribute instead of the more typical source attribute for your image. Okay, so the way it works is with the lazy load, you have either on demand or progressive. On demand will load the next slide as we go to the next slide. Progressive will load all of the slides in your slider when the page loads. So if you had a mobile site and maybe you were a bit bandwidth challenged, then you might want to use lazy load and then on demand. Okay. If you had a mobile site that had better bandwidth, then you might still want to use lazy load and then progressive and load all of your images. I guess it's really going to come down to how many slides you have, what your bandwidth is, how large your slides are, okay, so, which will help you make that choice. So now let's look at using the non-lazy approach. So let's go and take a look at our page, and pretty much everything is the same. I added a little bit of a background color and I closed up the padding between the images. Other than that, I changed in this example the class to not lazy. And not lazy is again our class which is used in our function. And I should point out that we are again using the source attribute because we're no longer using the lazy slider approach to loading our slides. Now, let's go ahead and go down to our script and let's just make a couple of modifications. I'm going to comment out lazy load and I'm going to comment out slides to scroll, and then we can save. Everything else should remain the same. So if we take a look, we have our 3 slides which we can slide through. And one of the reasons I changed the background color is this first slide has a white border and that made the slide look smaller, and I just didn't want that to visually throw anybody off. Okay. All right, so I encourage you to go back to Slick Slide and maybe experiment with some of the settings, like maybe autoplay. So if we were to add a comma after arrows true, and we can add autoplay true. I believe that's correct for this. And autoplay true. All right, so let's go ahead and reload our page, and in a moment here we should have autoplay happening. All right, okay, so let's go back and let's comment out autoplay, and let's take a look at, maybe we want to do something like center mode. So we will add center mode. Make sure I have it correct here. Center mode true. Okay. And we'll save. And now we have our center slide as the one which is in focus. Okay. Let's see, how about also you might find working with adaptive height could be useful. So if we go and let's add an H1. We'll add an H1 to our second div here. We'll just type in Max Grundy, and I changed his name to Mav. He probably won't like that. Let's go back to Max, and then we'll close our H1. We will save, and remember we would be working with adaptive height, which is adaptive height true. Okay, so let's just see what we have. And you'll notice we haven't added adaptive height, and now we have our H1 underneath, and that space is being added to all of the slides. So let's go and we'll add a comma, and we will do adaptive height true. Whoops, don't need that. And we will save, and let's see if hopefully I've spelt it correctly there. Oh, I remember now. Also on the slides to show, for this to appear to work correctly, we have to set slides to show to 1. And now we should get our adaptive height working. All right, so one more time, I'll just go ahead and encourage you to go to the Slick page, go through the different examples, take a look at the settings, and then continue to explore on your own for adding the Slick slider to your projects.